Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the FDOT Traffic Plan Series. This is 2 of 10, and this week we'll be talking about Chapter 2 and key sheets. My name is Denise Broom, and I'm a CAD support specialist here in the CAD office for DOT. The objectives for Chapter 2. Basically, we're going to create a key sheet that meets the FDOT CAD standards. It's also going to meet the criteria defined in the Plans Preparation Manual, Volume 2, Chapter 3. And just so you know, in case you didn't, there is a roadway design bulletin out there, number 1603, that was in regards to key sheets. This has been updated and revised so that it also meets all the requirements of the latest bulletin, which bulletin goes into effect. It basically overrides whatever out there in the PPM until the next PPM comes out. Let's take a look at some of those requirements. Every component in a contract plan set has to have a key sheet, and it's always the first page in that set. And with it, there is two different sets of requirements. You have the lead component, and then you also have the subcomponents that go with that lead. Most of the time, it is the roadway component. If we have a roadway component, it will always be the lead component. However, there are times when there isn't any roadway work going to be done. Sometimes it's just maybe we're upgrading some signals or signal equipment. We're updating the signing pavement markings that are sitting out there on the road, but we're not actually milling up that surface, so there isn't a roadway component. And when that happens, then we wind up with, whether it's signing pavement markings, or it could be signals, it could be structures, whatever it may be, that becomes the lead component for a project. Like I said, most of the time there is a roadway component, which means that for the traffic plans, we don't have to meet as many of the requirements as a lead key sheet would need to handle. So what has to go on this key sheet? Most of the elements that you need are included in the standard borders. We have a standard border for all of the different disciplines. Roadway has everything that a lead key sheet would need. The rest of the disciplines, their key sheets do not have everything that's not required on the sheets for a subcomponent. We have to fill in the project ID, if it's got federal funds, county, all the project information, state road number, the contract number, that's going to be last. When you have it available, the construction contract number needs to go on there. This is something new. When we talk about a project, we talk about a project as it's whatever our financial project ID is. Okay, and that's the way we think of our projects. But when it gets into construction, they think of it more as that contract number. Per a request from them, we have added the construction contract number as part of the standard cell for you guys to fill in, and it needs to be on every component. Before it used to only be on the lead, and it's also moved, and you'll see that whenever we start looking at the key sheet. We have to have the fiscal year, of course, the sheet number. These items that I have in this like light blue, those are for the lead key sheet only. Location map and a north arrow. If it's a lead component, then I would need to create the location map. The Florida map cell goes in the upper right-hand side, and you label the project location. That cell is on all of our key sheets. However, it is optional for the subcomponents. And I haven't had anybody tell me that, hey, take this off of the subcomponent, so it's still sitting out there on it. And on there, basically, it's just a general location of where that project is. We just put a label pointing to roughly where it's at, and it's good to go. On the lead key sheet again, I would list all of the components that go with the project. That way, you know what all other sets of plans that we're looking for. Every single key sheet has to have the index of sheets. We have to have a, and I've got it in quotes because this is probably going to change, but we're calling them early works. There are 4 files that, if they exist, they can be signed and sealed in a separate PDF file and put in your index, but it's still a separate file, so it's not part of what you're signing and sealing. So there's a special note. We have a cell for that. If you have one of those sheets, then you would put this note in there underneath your index, along with an asterisk next to the sheet number. We have to have the engineer of record information. We have a cell, so you guys can just fill it in. The project manager has to be listed. The governing standards and specs has to be on there, but it is on the lead key sheet only. If you have any design standard revisions, that note has to be in there. It's just a note now. Before, it looked like a table almost of all of the DSRs that were applicable, and then you had to include those at the back of your sheets at the end. That's no longer the case per Bulletin 1603. It's just a note, and it says applicable DSRs, and you just list the numbers. The developmental design standards, however, if you have one of those, and again, these are if it's applicable, then I would put this on the key sheet. If it's not applicable, you don't have to put this on the key sheet. So the design standards, that still looks like a little table, okay? So it would list all the DDS, developmental design standard, along with the description. That has to go on there if you have any. First time you create the key sheet, you're not going to have the revision box or key sheet revision box. This would come very, very end. And if you did wind up with revisions, then they would be documented in the revision box. These are anything that you do, changes that you make to any of the sheets. On the lead key sheet, it's everything, every component, okay, it goes on that lead key sheet. The key sheet revision box is only for changes made to the key sheet, and making changes to the revision box is not considered making a change to the key sheet. So that would be if you add in extra sheets and the index changes, or if there's a DSR added or a developmental design standard. I hope at that point you wouldn't be doing that, but any of that happens to that information, then you have a key sheet revision, and you'd have to add the box and notate that. And last but not least, there is I'm calling it a goes with note. Basically, if you have a strung project, there is a note that you have to place on the lead key sheet so that anyone looking at the plans knows that this goes with this other project as well. And we have cells for everything that I've mentioned except for the index, and I'll show you how we create those indexes. If you do have a lead key sheet, and I put this slide in here because I really, it's in the manual, but also just in case you ever have to make a lead key sheet, you have to have a location map. And basically the purpose of a location map is to provide enough information so that the project is easily located and it's understood where it's at. County maps, they can be acquired from the surveying and mapping website. And I have in here 2 addresses. And I did this because we're going to be posting this. The web address, this is coming soon, you guys will know. But basically, they've finally gone through and decided that they're going to take this really long dot.state.fl.us, our domain, and they're changing it to fdot.gov. That should be in October. The other website, I believe it'll still be available for like 2 years, but we are moving to the new domain. So everything else should be staying the same. Speaking of the maps, there's 2 different types. You can get them in a DGN format, and you can also get them in PDFs. The DGN formats are going away. So coming soon, it's only going to be a PDF that will be available. But once I clip that location map, there's things that I need to label on my location map. They are the section, township, range, lines, and you get those off the map. I have to label the begin and end of my project limits, and in that label I have to label the mileposts to 3 decimal places and the stationing to 2 decimal places. I have to also label any bridges, bridge culverts with the begin and end stations, any station equations that I have on the project. I need to label those, project exceptions, and any rail crossings within the construction limits. So we're not going to touch as much on the location map as the rest of the key sheet this morning. One other question that I have, I know our website will be changing. It's going to go to the fdot.gov, but I'm not sure exactly what the end of it was, so I apologize for that. I will fix this whenever it gets out there. But in the meantime, you can still use the rest of this. Another note I wanted to point out here is that we are no longer quote-unquote ECSO. We are now the CAD office. So our email address is changing for the support. So you can email us at cadd.support@DOT. And email addresses are not changing anytime soon. Now I'm going to go into MicroStation. We have tools for creating the key sheet in multiple different places. One is under Actions. You can go to Sheets and then Key Sheets. And then you can see that we've got key sheets with a map. We've got key sheets without maps. Okay. So this is one option. We also have out in the FDOT plans development, our task menu, we have tools in here. They're going to be updated before October with our next release. But we also have the key sheet task menu out here. It opens up the key sheet clipping tool, as well as some cells in here, the range, townships, and placing the revision notes, engineer record information, strong project note. So all of these are available. There'll be additional icons that'll be available with our maintenance release. And there's also some right-click context menus, which I'll show you when we get the key sheet created or get into that file. Exercise 1, if you're following along in the manual, is creating a key sheet without a location map, because 90% of the time that's what you guys are going to need to do for traffic plans. There's usually a roadway component, so you don't need to create that location map. Okay, so I'm going to go to Create Files, and this up here, if you follow along with the manual, Chapter 1 last week, we went in here and we set up the project workspace and control file. This should be by default, since we've already been there once, it's going to use the last settings when you open it back up. So this should be right. If not, make sure you go to project settings, set your project correctly. It'll set the workspace, and then make sure you get the roadway control file. Once I have that all set up, then I want to go to siding and pavement markings. This is the same process no matter what discipline that you guys are having to create plans for. Okay, so what I need at this point, I need the key sheet. Okay, so I'm going to select the key sheet. Notice that it's going to put it in the signing folder so it knows where to put it, and I'm going to tell it to create. It's going to create the file for me, so it's sitting out there. And the next thing I want to do is tell it to open the file. So I'm going to click Open File. And notice down here at the bottom while it's doing its thing, and this is something to pay attention to. If I go through and I create multiple sheets to create or design files to create, then the active file for Open Edit, this tells you what that file is that it's ready to open for you. So if I went to Plan Sheet, notice that it's different. Okay, so just something to think about. So I've opened the file, I can tell this okay and go ahead and close it. I can set the plot scale. Honestly, it doesn't matter what the plot scale is as long as it is set, because we're not putting a map on here, so nothing needs to be to scale. Okay, you can leave it at 50, you can change it to 1, it doesn't matter, and I'm just going to click OK. Just remember what scale that you did use, because we do need to go in so that all of our tools work together we need the plot scale because Sheet Navigator is going to use the plot scale, okay? The other thing is that we are going to be using Linked Data Manager. So I need to make sure that I go to Settings and Drawing Scale, turn on the Annotation Scale, and set this to 1 to 50 as well to match my plot scale. That way everything comes in like it's supposed to. And then I can close that. So now I've got my key sheet file. The next thing I want to do is actually place the key sheet cell. If I right click, now I can show you, now that I'm in a key sheet file, now I can show you what options that we have. It's a context menu is what they call it. And we've set it up so that depending on what file I'm in, I have different options. So it knows that by the file name, I'm in a signing and payment marking key sheet file. I can place it with or without federal funds. So I'm going to just select the one federally funded. And it's going to place it on my cursor. And notice that my scale is at 1. Okay. I've set my plot scale and I've set my drawing scale to 50. So I want to make sure I turn this to 50 so that, again, it matches. And I'm going to just place it in the file. And then the next thing that I need to do is start filling this information in. Okay. Notice that all of this information here, some of it I can fill out with Sheet Navigator, which I didn't do that as part of this particular exercise. So I'm just going to show you another way to do it. I'm going to go down to the drawing tools. And if you can tell, I like the tasks because everything I need is over here. You can also go to the MicroStation toolboxes. You can go to the tasks main classic, however you want to get to it. But there is an auto fill in enter data fields tool. I like this tool. It brings up my text editor, and all I have to do is click in the file to get it started. Okay. So the first thing that it wants is the county name. So hopefully I spelled this right, Wakulla, and then hit enter. You don't have to touch your mouse at this point. The county the roadway section number is 59010. That's right. State road number is 61. And it's going to go down to my project manager. I'll just throw my name in there. Hit enter. And I didn't, but it does need to see everything on the screen. Enter. Oop. There it goes. It skipped a few here. S-1 for the sheet number. Make sure you put the correct prefix. Signing and pavement markings, it's an S. Fiscal year, we're putting in 17. The contract number, we don't know that yet. If I click in the screen, it will skip it and go on to the next if there is a next. Because somebody's probably sitting there going, but what about the financial project ID? What the tool does is it goes through and it finds empty data fields and it goes through one by one and it allows you to just keep filling them in quickly. However, they have to be empty. The financial project ID is not empty. Okay, it has the little dashes sitting in there. So I'm going to click on this single data field and I'm going to select it and see the dashes that are in here. So I'm just going to delete those out. 220495-5-5201. Okay, so all of that is now in here. Quick and easy. So the next thing I want to do is I want to place the engineer of records information. Okay, if I right click, I can go to the list, and there's a lot of different, basically from here down, these are all different cells related to the key sheet that I can place. So I'm going to select the engineer of record. And all of these, this is something new. When you guys get the update, this is the way it will work for all of these cells. If I click in the bottom, let me get to, All right, if I click in the bottom left, yeah, it's left corner down here and select, then it's going to place that wherever I need it to be. Okay. And I've showed you how to use the enter data field. You can also take any of these cells and edit them using the edit text tool and basically just select them, go in and change it. And this basically overrides it. And this may be what you want to do, because whenever I do it this way, it takes out the extra spaces that are sitting in here so that it's cleaner. And it's 123 Main Street. Contract number, vendor number, and the certificate of authorization number. Okay, easy peasy, right? All right, so what else is required? All of our key sheets do have the Florida map. So with the Florida map, we need to put the project location on there. I recommend that you use the place note. This is the easiest way to do it. We do have a dimension style sitting out there for, it's called key sheet locate. Okay, that's going to set my arrows. It's going to set everything that I need for it. I'm going to put 0.07 as my text height and width. And then I'm going to put in project location. And then select, it's down here underneath Tallahassee, Wakulla County is. So it's basically, it's just down in here somewhere. And notice that it now puts it in there. As far as all of the parts and pieces, everything is here. The last thing that you're going to add as you go, there's going to be updates and updates and updates to your index. Because as you add sheets, you may decide at this point not to put your index in here yet because you don't have plan sheets or anything else, because typically we do our key sheet first. But what I want to show you at this point is an easy way for you guys to automate this on the key sheets. So let me close this. The first thing that I need to do is open up Sheet Navigator. There's a couple of ways to do that. You can click on the hot link down here. Second one from the end here is Sheet Navigator. I can also go to Actions and Sheet Navigator. Okay, it takes you to the sheet edit. One thing that I recommend that you do while you're here is go ahead and set the f.pdf and you place your digital signature note, save the sheet. So my scale was right, my plot scale, so this came in correctly. So then I can go to the Navigator tab, and notice I don't have an index in here yet. So I'd go to File, New, and I can tell it the whole project or just the component. It doesn't matter, because basically what we're looking to do at this point is to get the signing component. And I'm going to tell it to build the index. It's only got one sheet. This will not take long. So see, I have one sheet, but it's in here. As you go, of course, you're going to get a lot more sheets that are going to put in here. You got tab sheets, you've got plan sheets, you may have a general note sheet, you may have extra, sheets for structures, you may have guide signs. There's a lot of things that could go in this component set of plans, mass darn tables, etc. So at this point, all we have is the key sheet. I want to tell it to generate my component index files. Make sure that before you generate the component index files that you update, you can go in here to new and rebuild it, okay, or reprocess it as new. But make sure that you rebuild that index before you generate sheets. That way you get the latest and greatest, okay. Cancel that. I'm going to go to generate component index files. And I'm going to toggle on the signing and payment marking plans and tell it to generate. If I did the entire project, I may see, I can pick and choose. It may have roadway, it may have, signals, etc. And it'll tell you what it finds and then give you the option of what do you want it to build. Okay, so the dialog comes up and it tells you that it created this component index.xlsx. Tell it okay, and I'm going to go ahead and exit out of Sheet Navigator. The next step, at this point I have my component index. I want to open up LDM. Again, multiple ways to do that. If I right click and hold, Link Data Manager is an option. I'm going to select it. I'm going to tell it to create a new link. And then I want to navigate. I don't want to create from templates. I've already got that file created for me, so I want to select an existing file. And it'll open to my working directory. And I want to grab that component index, okay, and tell it to open. It'll set the source file. Okay, I can put a description here if I want. Put in the sheet number that I need, okay, which is sheet 1. I want the standard. I want it to use the drawing scale to make sure that it uses the 50 scale so it matches, comes in at the right size. And I would normally tell it to say OK. If I do that, notice that you don't see it. If I were to try to place this, I mean, it is like teeny, 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 tiny. I don't know why it does it, but it's just an oops with LDM. So basically, I want to right click, and when I right click, it's going to pop this back up. So this ever happens to you, go, where did it go? Right click so you get back to the link information dialog and click on this little green arrow. What this does is open up the source file. Okay, real easy fix. Just type in S-2, give it a second sheet, and that will be my tabulation of quantities. And then save the file. Then go back in here and tell it OK. And now I have what I need. If you will snap to your sheet number, it will place this in the right location so it lines up like it's supposed to. Fit view. So for a component set of traffic plans, this is what you need for your key sheet. As you go along, there are different things. If for some reason this became a lead component, you can go in here to the component header, and this will place that component header that you need to list any component plans that goes with that project. I can go in, there's component list, developmental design standards, if I had any, if I had early works, place those in there. Strong project note if it was a lead. So the tools that are available in here, they're if you had a lead project or not. That way in this file, if it just so happens that you did have a lead component, you could still do all of the work easily. And then there's the contract revisions note. And these are set up. This will make it easier too, because then it's in the right location to make it consistent through every component, along with the key sheet revision box. Okay? All right, before I move on, let's see, do you guys have any questions? For traffic projects that are very long, let's say 150 miles of I-75, ouch, what is the best way to do the key sheet map and all the required info? That is a very unique situation. I honestly don't even really know how to say that. If it's 150 miles, that's pretty big. That would cross multiple counties. Let me get with the group over there at the criteria section. Basically, it'd still be the same, and I think once we move to the PDFs, this is going to be an easy thing because, well, maybe. Because like I said, you've got multiple counties. You've got to get all those counties into one map in order to be able to clip it. Contact us. I'm going to get some extra information. What's the best way to do that? But you'll still have to begin in project, all those other things there that are requirements. The trick is getting all of it to show up. Here's another one. In our district, we habitually include local road names and limits under the state road number. Could the cell be modified to provide fields for this? It's not the standard. Anything that's in our CAD software meets the standard. We don't add things just for one district or two districts. If everybody needs it, then it's in there. If you have to add something for a specific district, unfortunately, that's kind of manual process, and you'll just have to add that extra information that they're requiring. I created a key sheet using SS4, but it came in with the old key sheet format. Any idea on why? In other words, it doesn't have the contract number, etc., is what I'm thinking. If that's the case, this bulletin came out after our last maintenance release. So there was a hotfix that got sent out. Possibly you don't have that hotfix. So that would be what I would look at. With it. Everything will definitely be in the maintenance release that you've seen today. How do I fix the oops of the charts coming in tiny? That would tell me that it's a problem with the scale. So it depends on a couple of things. If you are looking at, and that kind of as we went through, I said make sure that you have your plot scale set correctly. Make sure that, so whatever it may be, if it has a map, it's going to be something like 10,560 at a 1 inch equals 2 miles, I believe it is. Or in this case, we set it to a 50 scale, okay? Or it could be 1 scale, but whatever I set the plot scale to, make sure that you go into settings, drawing scale, and that annotation scale's on it, and that we set that to that same scale. Then you can use the standard 0.07, and it does the math for you when you place text. When you place cells, make sure that you're using that same scale, 50 or 10,560. The fix for the index, it says all other charts come in tiny just like the index did. Well, the index is the only thing that we're placing on the key sheet. If this is not related to the key sheet, send me an email and I will answer the question. But for the key sheet, the fix is to go in and add that second line. It has an issue with having just that one row of text. If it's something other than that, my guess is that you're probably set a scale of, say, 50 or whatever in your file, and it uses this drawing scale. LDM does. It does not use your plot scale. It uses the drawing scale. So if you have a sheet that's at a 50 scale and you don't turn it on to use the drawing scale, and the drawing scale is set to the same 50 scale, then it will come in tiny. So you'll want to go into the properties for that link. Let me see if I can show you real quick. And if this doesn't fix it, then you'll have to send me an email. So if I open up LDM and I go to properties, okay, notice that I toggled on use drawing scale. Okay, so the drawing scale has to be set to the scale that I want, and this has to be toggled on whenever I create a link. If I don't toggle this on, it comes in at a scale of 1. So if you're looking at a scale of 50, it comes in super tiny. Okay, so make sure that you've got this set correctly, and like I said, if that doesn't fix it, send me an email and I will be more than happy to help you. There is an optional exercise in Chapter 2. This exercise basically goes through creating a key sheet with the map. Okay, so if you have a lead project and you need to go in and create a lead key sheet, how do you get the map? Real easy. It's a simple, easy tool. It really is. I can go to Sheets and then Key Sheets with the map. Or I can also click this Create Key Sheet from the Key Sheets and just tell this, it doesn't matter, state yes or no, just say yes. It's fine. First time you open up this tool, it's going to give you the key map type of roadway. This says roadway, but it's not actually created. So what I want to do is the first thing when I open this up, so I don't get a file in there that's named wrong, I want to go to the right key sheet that I want to create, in this case signing and markings. I already have an SP01, so I'm going to click on new so that I can tell it to make an O2 and tell it to save. And notice it automatically incremented this to an O2 because the O1 exists. Okay, so now I have the O2, and then I browse for the map. In this data set, the map is located under the data folder. These maps can also be saved to your discipline directory. Either one is fine. I'm going to go to data. I'm going to grab that DGN file until it's open. I would set my scale. In this case, I'm going to leave it at the default, 1 to 2 miles. We have 1 to 4, 1 to 8. 1 to 2 is fine for this particular project. It's however big you need that clip of the map created. And I will say this tool is being rewritten right now. We expect to have a new tool out there with the maintenance release so that it'll clip your PDFs. The old tool, it's only going to clip the DGN. So I'm going to go define the clip area. There it goes. And opening it read-only is fine. And if you'll notice, see there's like the square. Let me move this out of the way. Kind of covers stuff up. Okay, the project that I need, this is on 98, and this other red line, if you follow my cursor, it's kind of hard to do. It's there at 61. So basically, I know it's at that intersection, so I'm just going to kind of put that across the middle, and I'm going to just click in the screen. As soon as I click in the screen, notice it disappears. It's there, but it disappears. Okay, if you are not sure, you can always go back, click Define Clip Area again, and it's going to bring that back so you can redefine it. But just place it in there, and then tell it to clip the key map. And it does its thing. It creates the SPO2, and there is a map. And it automatically, when it does that, it'll bring up Sheet Navigator, and you can fill in the information. And then State Road 61. Make sure you don't put the SR, because on a key sheet, the State Road, this is text that's already there. So it's just filling in the 61 into here. Set your print style. I always recommend that you set the print style so that whenever it creates the print set later, that this information gets in there. It avoids issues later. Place your digital signature note and tell it to save the sheet. And from there, you're basically doing the same thing that I've already showed you. You go in and fill out all the rest of the information that you needed. One of the things that you would need to do, and I will add this to the right-click menu, but you'd have to go into the roadway cell library, find the governing standards to put in here. The other thing that you'd need to do is come in here and find your township and range, place those labels on here. That's additional. Some of the things, like if this is a main road, where does this go to? You know, to whatever city is close. A lot of times you can provide that. It's just extra information to help locate where this project is. If there were city limits here, I'd want to label those, but definitely the begin and project. I'd also want to go in and label any rail, etc. So placing those labels. For more detailed exercise on how to do this, you guys can go out to our website and go to the CAD website. And under here, you scroll down. And if you'll notice, this has changed too. We're now under production support, so our site looks a little bit different now. But I can go to training manuals. And if you will open up the planned development workflows, Chapter 2 in this manual shows creating the roadway key sheet, which is a lead key sheet. So it has all of the labeling and all of the, everything that you'd need for a lead key sheet is included in there. So that's another resource that you can go to for more information. Let me close that down. Is this key sheet on assigning payment marks just illustrative? Typically, we don't include it on here if a component set, which is correct. But there are projects, and the reason that I showed this, and whether it's a signals project, assigning a payment mark project, or a lighting project, there are projects out there where there isn't any road. And if you don't have a road component, well, guess what? Your signing and payment markings, if it's a project to go out there and replace pavement markings, okay? And there are projects that do this, okay? Without any road, then you would need to know how to create a lead component. A lead component has to have that location map. And so we just wanted, this is included just so that you guys would have know how that tool functions. Because a lot of times the folks that do the traffic plans, you guys don't ever do anything it does with roadway. There's other groups where that you're doing pretty much everything. I know when I was in design, I did all the sets, all the components. No, it's not typically just illustrative. There are times when this will be necessary. So, okay, question came in. When you plot with PDF, FDOT PDF, is the map completely a black dot? Thank you, Jimmy. He says you will need to use a color driver and select grayscale to get this to come in red. The other thing is that you can only have one print style in a P set. You can have multiple pen tables, but only one print style. So that needs to make sure that it is set correctly. All right, well, that looks like it. I hope you guys have a fantastic day and rest of your week. Catch us in 2 weeks, and we will see you then.